3, 2, 1.
My name is Eugenio Gastelum, and I am a video game expert for the United Nations, and we use video games to change public spaces around the world.
It's quite spectacular because people get very emotional about her and react to her as if she's a real child.
I wanted to show all girls that their value and potential is infinite.
We clear a woman's way. We don't fear the day she steps into the light because we are with her.
Because we are with her every step of that fight.
On today's program, we'll hear how to defuse the time bomb of climate change. And we'll learn how the Earth's ozone layer is continuing to recover. Then we'll see a town's program to recycle waste into fashion. After that, we'll witness a unique message from Greenpeace promoting the Amazon rainforest. And we'll experience an Indigenous Peoples Day rally in front of the White House. Finally, we'll hear our youth raise their voice concerning the inequality facing Indigenous people.
Dear friends, humanity is on thin ice, and that ice is melting fast. As today's report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, details, humans are responsible for virtually all global heating over the last 200 years. The rate of temperature rise in the last half century is the highest in 2,000 years. Concentrations of carbon dioxide are at their highest in at least 2 million years. The climate time bomb is ticking. But today's IPCC report is a how-to guide to defuse the climate time bomb. It is a survival guide for humanity. As it shows, the 1.5 degree limit is achievable, but it will take a quantum leap in climate action. This report is a clarion call to massively fast-track climate efforts by every country and every sector and on every time frame. In short, our world needs climate action on all fronts, everything, everywhere, all at once. I have proposed to the G20 a climate solidarity pact in which all big emitters make extra efforts to cut emissions and wealthier countries mobilize financial and technical resources to support emerging economies in a common effort to keep 1.5 degrees alive. Today, I am presenting a plan to supercharge efforts to achieve this climate solidarity pact through an all-hands-on-deck acceleration agenda. It starts with parties immediately hitting the fast-forward button on their net zero deadlines to get to global net zero by 2050, in line with the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities in light of different national circumstances. Specifically, leaders of developed countries must commit to reaching net zero as close as possible to 2040, the limit they should all aim to respect. This can be done. Some have already set a target as early as 2035. Leaders in emerging economies must commit to reaching net zero as close as possible to 2050, and again, the limit they should all aim to respect. A number have already made the 2050 commitment. And this is the moment for all G20 members to come together in a joint effort, pooling their resources and scientific capacities, as well as their proven and affordable technologies through the public and private sectors, to make carbon neutrality a reality by 2050. Every country must be part of the solution. Demanding others move first only ensures humanity comes last. The acceleration agenda calls for a number of other actions. Specifically, no new coal and the phasing out of coal by 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 in all other countries. ending all international public and private funding of coal, ensuring net zero electricity generation by 2035 for all developed countries and 2040 for the rest of the world, ceasing all licensing or funding of new oil and gas consistent with the findings of the International Energy Agency, stopping any expansion of existing oil and gas reserves, shifting subsidies from fossil fuels to a just energy transition, establishing a global phase down of existing oil and gas production compatible with the 2050 global net zero target. I urge all governments to prepare energy transition plans consistent with these actions and ready for investors. I'm also calling on CEOs of all oil and gas companies to be part of the solution. They should present credible, comprehensive and detailed transition plans in line with the recommendations of my high-level expert group on net zero pledges. And these plans must clearly detail actual emission cuts for 2025 and 2030 and efforts to change business models to phase out fossil fuels and scale up renewable energy. This acceleration has already started in some sectors, but investors now need crystal clear signals. And all governments need the assurance that business leaders will help them deliver on extra efforts, but government must also create an enabling policy and regulatory environment. Shipping, aviation, steel, cement, aluminum, agriculture, every sector must be aligned with net zero by 2050 with clear plans, including interim targets to get there. At the same time, we need to seize the opportunity to invest in credible innovations that can contribute to reaching our global targets. We must also speed up efforts to deliver climate justice to those on the front lines of many crises, none of them they caused. We can do this by safeguarding the most vulnerable communities and scaling up finance and capacities for adaptation and loss and damage, promoting reforms to ensure multilateral development banks provide more grants and concessional loans and fully mobilize private finance, delivering on the financial commitments made in Copenhagen, Paris and Glasgow, replenishing the Green Climate Fund this year and developing a roadmap to double adaptation finance before 2025, protecting everyone with early warning systems against natural disasters in 4 years, implementing the new loss and damage fund this year. The longer we wait on any of these crucial issues, the harder it will become. In less than 9 months, leaders will gather at COP28 for the first global stocktake of the Paris Agreement. They will also launch the process to prepare the next cycle of national climate plans or national determined contributions due in 2025. These new climate plans must reflect the acceleration we need now over this decade and the next. By the end of COP28, I count on all G20 leaders to have committed to ambitious new economy-wide nationally determined contributions encompassing all greenhouse gases and indicating their absolute emission cut targets for 2035 and 2040. The transition must cover the entire economy. Partial pledges won't cut it. I look forward to welcoming first movers on the acceleration agenda at the Climate Ambition Summit in September in New York. Once again, I thank the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change for showing the fact-based, science-grounded way out of the climate mess. We have never been better equipped to solve the climate challenge, but we must move into warp speed climate action now. We don't have a moment to lose. Thank you.
It's one of the great environmental success stories of our time. Scientists say that a 35-year-old agreement has resulted in the steady and promising recovery of the Earth's ozone layer. Located in the stratosphere about 10 to 25 miles above the Earth's surface, the ozone layer is a critical protective shield, blocking the sun's harmful ultraviolet radiation. William Brangham has more.
Back in 1987, after scientists discovered a dangerous thinning of the ozone layer, 198 countries signed the Montreal Protocol, which largely phased out the use of substances that damage that protective barrier, like chemicals used in aerosols or refrigeration. Now, 35 years later, a recent assessment by the UN shows it is steadily recovering. In fact, much of the ozone layer is on pace for nearly full recovery by the year 2040. Joining us now is Dr. Paul A. Newman. He's chief scientist for Earth Sciences at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center and co-chair of the assessment panel that documented the ozone's recovery. Before we talk about the recovery, can you just remind us why we care about the ozone layer, what benefits it provides to us humans and life down here on Earth?
Sure. Ozone is three atoms of oxygen, and most of it is located many miles above our heads. It screens harmful solar ultraviolet radiation. Ultraviolet radiation can break the bonds of biologically active molecules. It can lead to things like skin cancer and cataracts. So a healthy ozone layer is necessary for life on Earth.
And so were we seeing some of those impacts as the ozone thinned over the years?
We saw a pretty good, actually a very, very strong depletion of ozone over Antarctica. Over the rest of the Earth's surface, we saw thinning of a few percent, which is not a terribly big deal because the Montreal Protocol captured the problem with ozone depletion, and they acted to curtail the production and consumption of chlorofluorocarbons and other ozone-depleting substances. So the problem over most of the Earth didn't get too bad.
So there has been this steady evidence that it looks like the protocol worked as intended. And now this most recent report that you were a part of is really tremendous news. I wonder, what is the reaction you've been hearing in the scientific community?
I think the scientific community has been pretty aware of the progress of things, but to see it all comprehensively, to know that emissions of ozone-depleting substances are declining, to know that levels of these ozone-depleting substances are going down. We see methane, CO2, N2O that continue to go up, but ozone-depleting substances are going down, and now we see the increase of ozone in the southern mid-latitudes and the tropics and the northern mid-latitudes. This is good news for the scientific community and for the Earth as a whole.
Well, how rare it is we get to say that in this world today. What kind of tangible impacts? You mentioned some of them, that it might be a reduction in skin cancer. Are there other tangible impacts for a repaired ozone layer for us?
Sure. Besides the health effects for humans, crop yields, crops are damaged by UV radiation. Materials are actually degraded by UV radiation. Plants, other phytoplankton, for example, are affected by UV radiation. So this is overall a very good story for life at the Earth's surface. As you might know, we use UV to sterilize, for example, medical instruments. Getting UV down here at the surface is not a good thing, and to see the ozone recovering is a very nice thing to know about.
Is that all good news in this report, or is there anything in there that is troubling to you?
There's a number of things we continue to worry about. We need to continue to monitor the ozone layer. There are new technologies coming on, for example, new supersonic aircraft. One would hope that they could be designed and flown in an ozone-friendly manner. There's also more rocket launches that are going on. They deposit material into the stratosphere. We're worried about the potential impacts of large numbers of rocket launches, and actually the satellites as they re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. What do they do to the ozone layer? So we worry about these things. We also worry about rogue production of ozone-depleting substances. In fact, that happened in the last few years with chlorofluorocarbon 11, but the Chinese government acted to curtail that, and it's come back down to a more normal level. So we worry about it, we monitor it, and hopefully countries continue to abide by the Montreal Protocol.
My understanding is that targeting these particular chemicals was in somewhat easier because there were safer alternatives available for industry. The other big emissions that we're trying to stop, obviously, is carbon and methane, as you were describing, which drive climate change. Targeting those emissions, obviously, is a much steeper climb for humanity, right?
It very much is a steep climb. People have gas stoves, they have automobiles burning fuels, we have power plants burning coal. These are all CO2, carbon dioxide producers. And solving the problem of carbon emissions will be very difficult. That doesn't mean it can't be done. Every nation on the earth has signed on to the Montreal Protocol. In all the political differences, national differences, every nation has identified the ozone layer as something that needs to be watched and preserved, and they've all signed on to the Montreal Protocol. So I'm actually optimistic that something will be done eventually about climate, and we will cure this environmental problem.
All right, Dr. Paul Newman at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Most of our clothes will never get recycled. 99% will end up here, dumped and burned in landfill.
Our Earth at this point is not capable of absorbing the huge amount of clothing that is produced each year.
But what if all those wasted clothes could be saved and turned into something else? I've come to a town in Italy called Prato. This place has mastered a method to transform old scraps into new clothes.
Questo ci fa essere fieri.
What happens here is unique. There are hundreds of companies in this small district, and each specializes in one specific aspect of the process, whether it's spinning, weaving, or designing. And today, incredibly, this town says it processes 15% of all recycled clothes in the world.
So this is your shirt. If it's too old for the charity shop, it gets sent for recycling. Here, it's sorted by color, torn apart, washed, and then the new recycled material is taken and transformed to make new clothes with minimal waste.
That was very quick. Let's go through the process again. You donate clothes. They arrive here from lots of different countries. All the garments that can't be sold second-hand are taken to this company nearby. Here, not only are they separated by color, but also by material.
I think these used to be trousers. Quanti vestiti vengono processati qui ogni giorno?
Circa 25 tonnellate al giorno.
The clothes are put in this. It's called a carbonizing machine. It eliminates impurities from the wool. Then they go through this. It's like a giant washing machine. They're shredded, cleaned, and dried. This is the final result. Your old clothes have been transformed into these fine, fluffy wool fibers.
So at the end of the process, this is what the new recycled materials look like. They're placed here until a fashion brand buys them and uses them to make clothes. Some people might say that you are using trash to make clothes.
Se questo era vero fino a qualche anno fa, e quindi la parola rifiuto poteva essere un dispregiativo nel prodotto, oggi molti brand e molti retailer, proprio in funzione di salvare il pianeta, salvare l'ambiente, recuperare risorse.
Recycling wool is great for the environment. CO2 emissions are more than halved compared to when clothes are made from new material.
We have an immediate impact on animal welfare because you reduce the stress that you have to put on the animals to get the wool. Almost complete elimination of dyes because the way the wool is recycled is an assortment by color.
This is a method that's been passed on from father to son.
The culture in Prato is the kind of culture that we need across the entire fashion industry because it is based on collaboration that are local but are capable of showing how if these things are taken international or global scale, the entire industry could benefit.
The people of this town were forced to recycle clothes because they couldn't afford new ones. Now their methods, which have been honed over the past 100 years, could offer a way forward for a more sustainable fashion world.
Amsterdam wil af van de iconische letters I Amsterdam.
I Amsterdam sign has been removed.
I'm a bit confused. I didn't know there was anything wrong with it.
It's just gone.
On December the 3rd, 2018, a beloved European landmark has been removed once and for all.
I would like people to reconsider it and put it back. They're putting together the letters again, I-A-M.
Is it coming back? Nice surprise to see the letters coming in. This one is way cooler.
Far from our beds, a landmark vital to our survival is about to be gone too. The Amazon rainforest is under attack again by land grabbers and a greedy logging, mining and agriculture industry.
It's been a climate change in the last few years and we need to preserve the Amazonia. We need to fight for it.
And whilst you've been watching this film, an area of this size has been cut down. With every tree they chop, we get closer to a point of no return.
The European heat wave continues to scorch the continent.
Taking away the land of indigenous people is taking away their future, and it's forcing our precious wildlife into extinction.
I think it's a wonderful idea and a terrific cause.
We moeten zuinig op zijn. Dus ik vind het heel goed dat Greenpeace hier aandacht aan geeft.
Amazônia é o pulmão do mundo, significa isso.
If we lose the forest now, we lose the fight against climate change forever. You are the very last generation to save the Amazon rainforest. Act now.
Attention, this is Lieutenant Swope of the United States Park Police. Because you are in violation of regulations applicable to this area under DC Code 20.
Can't deal with your own voices because you're all and non-violent women. And non-violent women.
No.
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 Indigenous people face inequality because of their religion. Respect should be the guiding principle behind all of your actions.
Even if you don't agree with their religion, honor and give respect to them.
These people face inequality because of their status.
member said that indigenous people's cultures should be respected and protected.
And it was the responsibility of the government to protect cultural characteristics.
Education was an important measure in preserving the cultural characteristics.
The government should also make sure that no one is left behind despite the person's status.
No necessities must be neglected, be it mine, yours, or ours.
Indigenous people face inequality because of society's norms.
These standards dictate who and what you are.
These norms create inequity and injustice to people who are not accepted by those.
Borders are being made to isolate outdated people.
Abuses and mistreats sprout from these causes.
Let us join the
fight against
inequality among
indigenous people.
Stand by our side as we say no.
Thank you for watching Positive Spin. This show is made possible through the generosity of the Patty and Jack Wright Foundation and the Prem Rawat Foundation. Watch and subscribe to our previous episodes on YouTube, and please like us on Facebook. Follow us on Free Speech TV, Roku, Sling, DirecTV, Dish Network, and Apple TV. I'm Bill McCarthy. Stay safe and healthy, and remember, you can create your own positive news.